Don's buildings, as much as he bought a lot of buildings and as much as he made things that were big and as much as he really took up space and thought clearly, he was so humble about it all.
One of the first things Don did when I came on my very first trip to Marfa was take me out into the landscape to his ranches. And he sort of pointed to this vast landscape and said, I wanted you to see what you're really working for. I had never seen anything like this high desert.
He liked the way the town looked, and that was important. It's a very classical town. It hasn't changed much.
The artwork has a life here that I think is another revelation for people, that here there is no separation between art and life, and that art can exist in an architectural situation that has been transformed to support it, but it's set within a pretty extreme environment, and yet it has a very dynamic life.
Marfa gave him a sense of permanence that he didn't have in himself before.
Being exposed to nature like that. I came from being in school in New York City when I was 6 or 7, and I think I must have been in kind of shock. Just shocked by the quiet. And out at the ranches where we went to this one ranch in particular, and there's no electricity there. And so you would read, sounds really like Lincoln or something, but you would read by kerosene lamp. And I haven't done that in a while. I'm looking forward to like kind of doing that again. Marfa is part of the Chihuahuan Desert, which is coming up from Mexico and going north into New Mexico. And it's a very little strip, which is why most Texans don't even know it's here, and definitely most Americans don't know it's here. They don't know that there's a place that looks like Africa in America. Marfa is this kind of 1930s wide open rancher town with generally really nice architecture in the center of town. And a Russian name. So, very unusual place, I'd say.
I began working for Don in 1984 and worked with him until 1991. I was based primarily in New York and Europe, but I also was involved with the development of what became this big project here in Marfa. Well, I think he had some unpleasant experiences in museums, and the fact that you couldn't readily go back and actually look at artwork over and over again because they were temporarily installed. So the idea of permanently installing work here in Marfa grew out of his desire to install work permanently in New York. So in New York, at his building at Spring Street, those were some of the first spaces that were really installed.
When we moved into Spring Street, I was 6 months old. On one floor, we had everything that parents owned, and that was a lot of art. So the art was there from the beginning. Very clear that the art was important and to be respected.
By the time he becomes successful, he's sick and tired of New York City. Even though he's got this beautiful building and what would seem to most people like a lot of space, 5 stories up and 2 stories down, he wants to find a place to be and settle and spread out.
We started coming here in '71, so it was very early. And the beginning was just like a place to go for the summer. To me, I was a little kid, that was great. You go to Texas for the summer and you ride horses and do things like this.
Probably one of the best things about Marfa, like just hands down one of the best things about Marfa was that it was small. Because when you're a kid, you want to have a territory. And you want to just, yeah, that person's over there, and that person's over there, my friend is there, and that's where the ice cream is. Like, you want to have the lay of the land, and you want to have freedom within it.
I like the Southwest a great deal. Most of the Southwest is rather crowded, and this isn't.
I like less people and more space, I guess. And it's easier to think out here because you're not so busy. It's too busy in New York.
Don bought East Building in '73 just by itself as a place to install his art, and then it slowly, over 2 years, grew from there. And then while he was restoring this, we were living in a small house on the edge of town. And then once this was finished, we moved here. When Don bought Spring Street, he divided it up into, each floor had a use. So the top floor was for sleeping, 3rd floor was a studio. That applied here too. So this used to be the studio, but then it was taken over by the library. The 2-story building was where we lived. Don had his own bedroom in the East Building. Most of the block is installed art.
When I met Donald, Marfa was like, a dead town. The price of cattle were down. There was a big drought, and in the 50s and 60s, and it's just like the town was like a one-horse kind of dying town. Marfa wouldn't be what it is today without Donald Judd. That brought other interests into the area, which didn't exist before. Because, these ranchers, they don't care about aluminum boxes in a Quonset hut. They care about grass and water and cattle and their horses and what they're going to get for their cattle. You know what I mean? There's a big difference.
with change, there's going to be animosity. Some people don't like it. A lot of the locals, but I'll give the new people that moved, they're pretty hard-headed. They hung in there until now it's working, and it took a while, and everybody had to learn to accept each other because they weren't leaving. You know, by God, they were staying, and they did stay. And everybody just had to say, well, they ain't gonna stay now. We just got to figure out how to make it work. And everybody is, and now everybody's having fun. I really think everybody's enjoying living here again. I've cowboyed in a lot of places. And the one thing I love about cowboying out here, and one it's my favorite place in the world to cowboy, is the confidence in the cowboys. They don't worry about it. They are cowboys. And when you're confident and secure in what you are, that makes you more open to other people being what they are. The reason it worked out here with the artists and the younger generation and the hipsters that are here and the locals is because of that confidence. It eliminated one of the conflicts, and a pretty important one. So I think that's why it works here, and it would be more difficult to work somewhere else.
My dad, he was a really shy guy. So he had friends here. Most of them were either a few ranchers or the guys that he bought this place from. So he didn't do a lot of outreach, I would say. Like, I would ask him a lot about ideas and making things. Like, who do you make your art for? Well, I make it for myself. Like, well, how do you know what to make? You have to make what you like. You have to make the swimming pool you want to swim in. I think he enjoyed kids' questions. We have friends who've talked about this aspect of him, that he would speak to our friends as if they were very intelligent, and how they would leave here with like a kind of certain pride in, yeah, I just had a really good conversation. Like, I had an intelligent conversation with Don, yeah. I think he spoke to all kids as if they were like little geniuses. And then you speak to little kids as if they're geniuses, they grow up really smart because they're like, yeah, I can think on my toes.
Don himself had really a very agreeable personality. It meshed well with mine. We had sort of a good working system, and he was very funny. So he had a good sense of humor, which was nice for me as an employee. He did care about how well his artwork was made. So there was a kind of precision in terms of the quality of the pieces of art that were being fabricated. The making of art and the writing about art require a certain kind of discipline, and he was certainly a very self-disciplined.
I was very wary of geometric schemes, so it wasn't easy to come to using all that. I liked organic shapes, I guess. I don't know. But again, I got to dislike the organic sort of line or shape because it always referred to something else. The geometric shapes don't refer to anything else.
He was a really, really smart guy. You know, we spent time talking a lot about politics. We almost never talked about art. I mean, we would talk about like how to mix a color, how to get the lines right. That's actually not talking about art. That's talking about the project and the technical issues. But we didn't talk about the philosophy of art. With Judd, we talked about ranching because I had spent a fair number of, couple of years working on a ranch. So he had, I don't know if you know about it, like 3 big ranches south of town, about 60 miles south of town. I think the total of the 3 ranches was something like 40,000 acres, which I've heard this, but there were so many rumors and so many urban stories about Judd. But I heard that he was really proud to have a ranch that was bigger than Manhattan. So
I think Don was very, very sensitive to not just nature and not exerting his ego on it, but he was also very sensitive dealing with buildings because he had so much respect for labor, both of people alive that he collaborated with, but also he had respect for labor by people he never met. The guys who laid the adobes of this building were respected, though he never met them. I think he got that in the Army. He was very disturbed whenever he saw a lot of waste.
There were a lot of buildings on the main street that were no longer in use, that were falling into disrepair. And over the years that Judd lived in Marfa, he was able to purchase these buildings, restore them, renovate them, and put them to a particular use that's non-commercial. He really was able to kind of maintain the distinction of this place. He didn't knock down the buildings. He preserved the actual buildings on the main street. So this main street looks quite similar to how it did in 1930, 1935. He didn't want Marfa to become unrecognizable or to become something different. He wanted to live and work in Marfa.
He grew up during the time basically where the United States changed from a small 19th century society to one with strip malls and superhighways. They're 2 different things. And he grew up as it changed from one to the other, and I don't think he was very happy with the change. Because all the small towns start looking the same. Like if Marfa had 10 freeway going through it, it wouldn't look like Marfa.
He would come to me and say, this building is for sale and we really have to buy it. We really have to save this building. So a lot of it had to do with preserving buildings that existed.
The purposes given to the buildings were almost an excuse to buy the nice buildings. I mean, they were bought firstly because they were nice. And Don wanted to save them, and he felt that was important. Because if somebody else bought the bank, it might not be there anymore.
When you're in Marfa and you see the different spaces that Judd worked and lived in, I think one important thing about these spaces is that often they're both living and working spaces. For Judd, that was an integrated activity. He didn't think of it as separate, where you have your job and then you have your life. He felt that that dichotomy was false, basically. He was able to have these activities and really be able to look not only at his work, but at the work of other artists and designers. So for example, in his architecture studio, which is the former Marfa National Bank building, he installed his furniture in both wood and metal, in addition to furniture by Gerrit Rietveld and Mies van der Rohe and Alvar Aalto. And so his work is able to have a conversation, and he's able to see the work in relationship to predecessors whose work he highly valued.
Definitely the scale of his artwork changed after the period when he brought Flavin and I here to go to school in 76, 77. In New York, he had returned with this show at Leo Castelli Gallery with a piece that was so large and so symphonic, you could tell that his sense of scale had changed. So I think that Marfa and the spaces here were not only what he hungered for, but then impacted him in a way that is visible if you look at his work. I also think the peace and quiet and the being left alone affected his work.
The Chinati Foundation is a contemporary art museum founded by the artist Donald Judd. In the late 70s, with the support of the Dia Art Foundation, he began purchasing the buildings that comprise Chinati today. And this had been a former military base, Fort D.A. Russell. We have 34 buildings and 340 acres, so we're not your typical museum in that respect. The 15 works in concrete were the first works that Judd installed here. Judd was dealing with, in the concrete pieces, a consistent form, but dealing with different configurations of it. But he had the time to think through each different iteration of those forms could open up a new experience of it. It was installed from 1980 to 84, concurrent with the work in the artillery sheds, which was installed from 82 to 86. Judd saw the potential in these abandoned military buildings to create an institution that was different. I think it's still pretty radical. Where artists could install work on a large scale permanently on their terms. And in that way, it would set an ideal experience of their work. Originally limited to the work of just a few artists, his own work, the work of Dan Flavin, and the work of John Chamberlain, that developed naturally over time, and Judd invited other artists to be a part of the project. And all of that is set within this very distinct context of the light and land of far west Texas. So in a way, they don't get separated into distinct areas. The art, the architecture, and the land have a cohesive whole in all of the installations here. And I think that that's also a very unique aspect of Chinati. You can go to other institutions where the architecture is an architectural statement or the collection is how it has formed, but here that interdependent relationship is has a very powerful presence here. Judd had considered being an architect, but he said he actually wanted to get things made. So here at Chinati, and in his private live-in workspaces prior to this, he had the opportunity to think architecturally about spaces. And here you see the manifestation of sort of the adaptive reuse of industrial buildings. Judd transformed those buildings, which are very simple, into this astonishing installation, architectural experience, a kind of artistic experience.
Judd is also a member of a generation that's thinking, you know, when we made art as a small painting or a small sculpture, that the artist had some ability to control the way it was seen within the context of the individual piece, but then it was purchased by other people and then applied to different uses and for lots of different kinds of stories, which was way outside of the artist's control and outside of their idea of what art should be and the way that that piece should be seen. Judd is a part of that generation who, the artist-run institution and so forth. It's how do we create a context where the artists get to control the way it's seen as much as possible so that other stories aren't told on top of the art and so the art doesn't become like a sort of tool for other people's ideologies and stuff. I think that happens more now than happened in the generation before Judd, and I think that Marfa, Chinati Foundation, and Judd Foundation are his two largest or biggest achievements to that end.
What these spaces have for the art that is in them is a warmth. They all have texture of some kind, whether it's wood or worn out concrete or adobe. It's not like you need grandiose buildings to show art. And you need considered spaces, and you need to think about the relationship of the pieces to the space they're in and the size of the walls. All of that you can find harmony within without making a fancy place and without, I think, there are institutions that have a kind of coldness, like they would be blue and we would be yellow. And some of Don's pieces that were made later on have a machine quality that you could call cold, but then he would put those pieces in a warm space. And you would feel this harmony, but most people, we don't take the time to talk about it, or there's not a dialogue about why something feels so good. Like, we're such complex individuals. It's okay that we don't stop and analyze everything, but maybe good to walk into a space and make it your own, and then go off and keep asking yourself what you like and what appeals to you. Because you are where it all starts. Like, you and your likes and your senses, you're the only senses that you know. Nobody has access to anybody else's senses, and you have the most incredible equipment, being human. Everybody could be aesthetic if they would follow their senses.
I got to read all of Don's notes. And so that's, 30-something years of notes. And so it was like being with him. I was sitting in a little house in Marfa, staying up till 4 in the morning, just reading his notes. And so for a week, I basically got to visit with Don. It was like being with him again. It was very nice.
The town was very, very poor when I first visited this community. It is now a thriving community. Certainly, all the local community members have benefited from this, from increased commerce, from increased tourism, cultural tourism, if you will. The community as a whole has really learned to appreciate it and to, if not understand it, at least to understand the impact that it's had on the community itself, which has been very positive, particularly from an economic standpoint.
You ain't gonna get a cowboy to understand minimalism. There's a lot of art that I do like, and I'm not knocking his art. I don't get it. And it was his life, and I'm happy for him. It's just don't expect me to like it or pay for it. You know, you'll enjoy yourself. Go look at his art. If nothing else, just to get pissed off. Go, really? You know, this is what he's famous for? You know, at least I'm still talking about it. I talk to people almost every day about it, so, you know, I'm sure he's giggling in his grave. Going, you may not like it, but you're talking about it every day, cowboy. You know? He got one over on me. So that, to me, that makes it the humorous side of it, so I do like that. You know, anything make you giggle is good for the world.
Judd cared a lot about Marfa. He cared about the people. He cared about preserving the town and providing opportunities for the people here. As someone who's now chosen to live in Marfa, I take that seriously, and I think he's one of the examples of people here who was a good citizen and who cared about and thought a lot about what it meant to be a good citizen in a small town. And that's been very inspiring for me.
And in Marfa, we have a lot of collaboration because we don't have a lot of resources. And I really like that, actually. So there are a lot of very good cultural institutions here that historically have had to work together in order to accomplish what they wanted to do, which I really like. So we have Ballroom Marfa, which does a really excellent film, music, and contemporary art exhibition series. They've been here for maybe 12 or 13 years. There's Marfa Contemporary, which is a contemporary art gallery, and there's several independent, small, for-profit galleries. One of the things that really got me about moving to Marfa in 2006 was you could see that young people who historically had sort of a creative interest would have left. They would have gone to the bigger cities in the Southwest or farther. And people had started to stay who had grown up here. And I think now you have a lot of, you have kids who are making paintings and who are making music and who are making films.
Marfa is still a difficult place to get to, but certainly in the 1980s and 1990s, it was a pretty far removed place off the beaten track of the art world. But Judd inspired people to come, to kind of seek out this experience of art on the artist's terms. And so from the beginning, this requirement or request that you make the journey, that you come and you separate yourself from kind of the daily concerns of life in other places, and you make the commitment to travel to this far-flung place and open yourself up to an immersive experience of light and land and art on a vast scale. And I think that is what has endured and has enabled this place to really not just survive, but to thrive. And now we have people from all over the world who are coming here to have a meaningful experience with art.
Prada Marfa is just like a time capsule of shoes and bags, because Prada does not mass produce anything. There's people that show up that come all the way here just to see that place and have their picture taken in front of it.
I wouldn't say that I come to Marfa for the art. I know other people do. But I come here for the land. And the people who fed me when I was little. The experience of being here and the fishbowl sky. And the night sky that I just have never been anywhere else in the world that has a night sky like this. I like seeing the art at the block, and I like, being in this room. But I would say my hunger, first and foremost hunger when I get here is to see the mountains and to see those curves in the land.
How do you feel about the term minimal art?
Well, I don't like it, What's minimal about it? I never thought of my work as sculpture.
Well, if your work isn't painting and it isn't sculpture, what is it?
It's just something else. I don't really have to.
It's another category.
Yeah.
Artists, to me, and maybe to my dad, I would say, are not studied or explored as the leaders of thought in society that they could be. There are a handful of people in society that are truly sensitive to the issues of both being human, expressing yourself, and having basic needs. Be sensitive to the time and place you're in, and vocal, and also be creative, to both exalt and celebrate that we're here, but also demand a certain amount of rights and equality. Those are fabulous people, and we need them. So I think to take artists and put them in an art history class as somebody who makes things or paints things is a bit of an oversight of the resource that they are.
As you walk through either the 15 works in concrete or the works in aluminum, you have this constant engagement of an open sense of perception between what is a volume, what is a solid, what is present, what is absent, how you as a viewer are bodily engaging with this work. And I think what's so exciting about those two works here is you have this very dynamic relationship on two very different scales, the massive scale of the works in concrete and the more bodily scale of the works in aluminum. And I think those two dynamics for an artist like Judd is such a powerful experience to have when so much of our relationship with his work is usually in the kind of minimalism room in most museums where you get one kind of room-scaled work and you don't get that sense of expansiveness and how you, as the viewer, move through these pieces and you are personally in relationship to them. And it's so important for all of these artists that their work have a permanent presence here, because the rate of temporary exhibitions and kind of mythology that's around artwork that you never had the chance to see because you missed that installation. Here, it will always be here. Hopefully it will stand the test of time. But that notion of time is so important for each of these artists that you would come back and you would return and you've changed, or the season has changed, or the landscape has changed in a way that these pieces reveal themselves anew no matter how many times you experience them. And I can say that having walked through these spaces now hundreds of times, every time I go into one of these installations, I see something I've never seen before. And I think that's an extraordinary experience. That's a very powerful statement to make about the significance of art, that it's always relevant and that it can be timeless and that permanence is, in fact, one of the most important things we can give an artist in terms of their artistic expression.
Most of the places where you travel in the world have large contemporary museums where work goes up and down all the time. And I think to be able to return to the work as you would with a fresco in Italy, for example, or for ancient ruins, to be able to see that work over time is so crucial. I can go to Sicily and see ruins at Segesta is incredible. And it's very powerful to be able to see those ideas and see that way of thinking and that culture. And certainly 30 years is not the same thing as ancient ruins in Sicily, but I think 30 years is very powerful in a culture that operates on an exhibition schedule of 6 weeks.
To see this tiny little town in far west Texas has become a destination the world over because of the commitment to art and artists on that scale is a deeply powerful thing.
The architecture and the art and the writings and the thought and the way of thinking and the thought that produced all of that, to me, it's all one big thing. And that is the most important thing, that it is one thing. It demonstrates that all of these things are interrelated and that you can't like separate them out. You shouldn't separate them out and divide them up, because by doing that, you weaken them. Hopefully, you know, somebody comes here, looks around and realizes that the fancy new museum they were considering building actually doesn't work for the art, and then they should rethink it. So that would be great. Because the primacy here is the art. It's about the art. And it's not built for other reasons. So I think that's a good lesson if you're dealing with the art.
I find it really rewarding to have known somebody in one way while they were alive, and that was extremely full and an adventure and an unforgettable forming of me. It's like the gift that keeps on giving, to be able to come across an idea that I didn't know he had, or a piece that I didn't know he made, or a drawing. It's an incredible world that he made, and he was just one guy. So we kind of feel very proud to share what just one guy could do with life. If there is a message that he left to the art world and to people, go home, take care of your street corner, or if you don't like your street corner, move to one that you like and take care of it. Be in your home, pay attention to what's around you, have all of your senses when you live. Speak up when you like something, when you don't like something, be fully alive. And know that artists are the most important people in society.